very much, one and all, for coming along tonight. It's a super turnout, in appalling conditions with rain and what have you, so I'm very, very, very grateful for such a good showing. My name is Chris French. I'm chairman of the Mid-Sussex Assembly. We're a local organisation, grassroots group. We number about 200 odd members now on Telegram. You can find us there. And we've got some leaflets that we circulated, and there's some more by the door if you want to take one away with you. And we would be over the moon if you might want to consider joining us. And what we're about is we are a group that's very diversified. You know, we have trades and professionals, lawyers, accountants. We've got tradespeople as well. People from all walks of life, retired teachers, nurses, and so on. And we're united perhaps in the sense of we question deeply government policies, you know, towards COVID-19 in a nutshell, and so we look at that and we take action local outreach, so to speak. So we're very active in that sense. And if you want to participate in that, you're more than welcome, obviously. One thing to also mention is that on many of the chairs, there's a copy of this little document here. This is issued by an organisation called Together, and it's a very important organisation, very close to my heart. And what this organisation is doing is that they are standing up for the NHS workers. As you may know, there are mandated vaccines that these guys have got to take, and there's some extraordinary numbers involved of people who are refusing, you know, quite rightly. It's their body after all. They have sovereignty over it, and they do not want to take, as they see it, an experimental drug into their bodies. And apparently the number is something like 100,000 or some extraordinary figure of NHS workers who are basically being threatened with the sack if they don't comply. I mean, it's unprecedented, it's unheard of, it's disgusting. So yeah, please, if you get a chance, pick up a copy of this, or if you haven't already, sign the declaration. It's on the web, search for Google, find it that way, and it's called Together. Right, our guest tonight is Dave Murphy. Yep. Also known as allegedly Dave, so let's have a brief round of applause for Dave. Dave, as he says on his website, and I highly recommend his website to you, which is simply allegedlydave.com. Yeah. He's a very interesting character. In his own words, he's an ordinary guy who's had a very extraordinary life, I suppose. A lot of very unusual experiences. And so in a nutshell, if you don't mind me saying, Dave, according to your website, I'm sure this is gospel truth, essentially Dave has had a very interesting life, as I say, and he worked very hard, and he worked for Fortune 500 companies in New York. He comes from Basildon originally, and he did extremely well, and there are photographs on his website of a bright red Ferrari. You know, he was doing extremely well in life, made an awful lot of money, and was enjoying material things in life. He was happily married at that time and so forth. And then in 2001, he was based in New York, and you know, the awful Twin Towers and that incident. He was working opposite, wasn't he, the Twin Towers, I believe. Yep. And obviously, you know, very well what happened on 9/11. And that was part of a sort of wake-up call. And he started to realise perhaps what are the most important things in life, you know, other than material possessions and so forth. And that was a very important turning point, one of the many turning points in your life. So, without further ado, time is of the essence, and I know Dave said to me he's going to try and cram 5 hours worth of a normal talk into a couple of hours tonight. So, without any further delay, let's hear from Dave.
I guess I don't have to tell you who I am. Right, so I kind of like audience participation here, right? So let's not be silent, okay? So as Chris said, my normal common law talk is about 8 hours long, and you guys haven't got 8 hours, so I'm going to try and squeeze it all into 2 hours, right? So I might have to go at breakneck speed, okay? So before we start, I want you all to tell me what a curved yellow fruit is.
Like what?
All of you. One more time. Good. Okay. Now I want all of you to stand up. Stand up, please.
Always a dictator.
Yes, I am a dictator. You will stand up. No. Now I want you for a few seconds to stand on one leg. Just for a few seconds. Everyone doing that? Yeah. Okay, you can all sit down. Thank you very much. Okay. So, what is common law? Common law is essentially natural law written down, or the Most High's law. Yeah, we call him God, God's law. Okay, we all know what that is. We all have that written on our hearts. Yeah, we all know what's right and what's wrong. Okay, so common law is essentially the 10 Commandments boiled down. Okay, it boils down to do not cause harm, injury, or loss to people or their property, and don't be fraudulent in your contract. So don't lie. Okay, that's it. That's it. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, encore. Yeah, okay. So essentially, that's it. If you break these simple rules, that is what's known as a crime. Okay? It's important for you to get that because, these days, the police and the government are trying to make everything criminal. But the point is, if there's no injured party, there is no crime. Okay? So, as I said, everyone knows what's right and what's wrong. Even the psychopaths know, but they just don't care. Okay? Now, there's another thing called universal law, and this becomes very important because the powers that be go to an awful lot of extraordinary lengths to avoid universal law. There is a universal law that says everything that you put out there is going to come back at you, multiplied. I don't know if can everybody see this screen? It's very small for those at the back. Yeah. Those people in the cheap seats, can you see the screen? Yeah, good. Okay. Right, so yes, everything you put out there is going to come back at you, multiplied. So if I was to say, punch Davey in the face there, right?
Whoa, where it go?
Yeah, if I come up and punch Davey in the face, right? Is that a crime?
Yes.
Is that a crime?
Yes.
Crying out loud. Right, yes, it is a crime, yeah? And it's also going to invoke universal law because if I punch Dave in the face, right, I'm probably going to trip off at that stage and bash my face in 7 times worse than Dave got, right? That's universal law. People call it karma. It's more direct than that, okay? But what if I said to Dave, David, do you mind if I punch you in the face?
No, not at all, mate.
Not at all. So when I punch him in the face, is that a crime?
No.
No, because he agreed to it. Yeah, and is it going to come back on me? No, because we made an agreement and I just held up my part of the agreement. So you'll notice, right, in this world, the powers that be, before they do anything, right, most people say that they tell us about it. No, they don't just tell us about it. They get our agreement first. Then they do it, and then it doesn't come back on them, okay? So, along with this idea of the law that's written in your hearts, okay, is a whole body of case law. That is, decisions made by juries over the centuries to deal with all the nuances around common law. Simple as that. The juries make decisions on these little nuances, between cause no harm, injury or loss. Okay? So that's what it is. It's just a whole bunch of case law spanning centuries. Okay? Now I say that juries make the decisions, not judges. Because judges in a courtroom do not have power. The power, who is the highest authority in the land? Anyone know? We are! Yes, we are. We, the people, are the highest authority in the land. And a jury of 12 ordinary people is representing the rest of us. So in a court, they are the highest authority in the land. And this is where the power is. Yeah? On this image, there's this politician, but the Queen can be there, the police can be there too. Yeah? We give them our authority. Right? And as soon as we lose interest and walk away, they're going down. They get their power from us. Okay? And this is a very important thing, again, to get, because You know, we've been brainwashed from almost birth to believe that we are lower than low. And all these officers and politicians and everybody else are above us. It's not true. We have the power. They gain their authority from us. Okay? So this is how it works. The world is separated into two parts here. We have what's lawful and what's legal. Lawful is about common law. Okay? It's the law of the land. And on the other side, kind of mirroring what's in real life, is the fake, is the statutes and acts for maritime admiralty law, the law of the sea. Okay? So the legal system is like a thin veneer over the top of common law, which is the real law. Okay? So lawful is anything that doesn't cause harm, injury or loss, fraud or threat. So you can do anything you like, as long as you don't harm anyone. So you can strip off naked and run down the high street screaming if you like. That's not against the law. Yeah, well, for some people it should be, but you know. But it's not against the law, right? You can do anything you like, as long as you don't harm anyone. On the other side, legal is whatever the government allows you or licenses you to do. Yeah? One's expansive, the other one's restrictive. Okay? The lawful side pertains to sovereign beings. All of you are sovereign beings. Okay? You are kings and queens without subjects. Right? And the law applies to you. On the other side, the legal system only applies to government employees and corporate employees and anyone who consents to it. Okay? On the lawful side, you have rights. You have inalienable rights. Rights that can't be taken away from you. But you can certainly give them away if you want. And on the other side here, you are granted privileges. And they can absolutely be taken away from you. You know, every time you are a naughty boy or girl, they'll take them away from you. And on this side, the common law is upheld by constables. You remember the constables? Remember the Doc Dixon of Dock Green type? Who used to be the Bobby on the beat, who everyone in the neighbourhood would know, and he would know everybody in your neighbourhood? Yeah? He'd be the one who would, catch the kids scrumping apples and give a clip round the ear and say, "Don't do that again or I'm going to tell your mum." Yeah? But those guys got replaced by these people called police officers, policy enforcers, not upholding the law, but enforcing statutes and acts, which they're not actually allowed to do. We'll get to that later. But along with that, I don't know if you remember, but when we had these guys, it used to be called a police service. But then it morphed very slowly into a police force. Service, force. Slight difference there, right? So, a statute or act is defined as a legislated rule of society given the force of law, which should tell you right there that it's not law. It gets the force of law by the consent of the governed. Who's the governed? We are. Remember what I said about audience participation? Yeah. Yes, we are the governed, so we give the consent to these laws. Now, the government will try and tell you that you've already given your consent because you've voted for one of their politicians. Right? That's not true. Whenever you come up against the law or the legal system, you're going to be asked for your consent there and then. Okay? And if you consent, well, now it becomes law to you. Okay? An example of that is if the policeman stops you and says, "You know, I'm charging you for doing 50 and 30. Do you understand?"
No, I don't stand on that.
Some of you know this already, yeah? So yes, he says, "Do you understand?" but he's not speaking in English, and we're going to get into this a little later, but he's not speaking English. He's using the word understand as legalese, foreign language, and it means to stand under, to consent, to agree to by it, to be bound by it. Okay? So when you say yes to that, now you've consented. Now that law, that statute becomes law to you. Do you get that?
Yeah.
Oh, one or two of you do. Good. So yes, if you agree or confess to being a government employee or a fictional entity created by government, then it becomes law to you. Okay, that just sums up what I was just saying. So, let's have a look at the hierarchy we're talking about here. So, above everybody, above everything, is the Creator, whoever you deem that to be. Okay? The Creator created us. Every man, woman and child on earth is at that level. There isn't a Rothschild or a Gates or a Rockefeller above us. No, they're all at the same level, the sovereign being level. Okay? We collectively created government. Government is under us. Yeah? Government is subservient to us. A created thing is less than the creator. Okay? Government, in turn, creates all sorts of fictional entities. Citizen, driver, person, taxpayer, resident, voter, driver. All these fictional entities that only exist on paper. The trick is to get you, in your sovereign capacity, and remember, above government, where government can't touch you, right? Get you to give up your sovereign status and accept a lower status as one of these things. Good evening, sir. Are you the driver of this vehicle? You say yes. Well, now you've given up your natural right to travel in any way you see fit to accept this position as a driver. And that driver comes along with all sorts of rules, regulations, taxes, fees, insurances, blah, 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 blah. Okay? But you gave up your natural right to accept that benefit privilege offered by government. Okay? So does it apply to you? So Tesco's has a rule for its employees, especially if you're likely to work on a till. If you work for Tesco's, you're not allowed to walk into that shop with money in your pocket. Because obviously if you're working on the tills, Tesco's don't know if the money's yours or came out of the till. So you're not allowed to walk into that store with money. If you don't work for Tesco's, does it apply to you?
No.
No, it doesn't. Let's say you walk in now, you used to work for Tesco's, and you walk in there one day and the security guard stops you and says, "Don't you work for Tesco's?" And absent-mindedly you say, "Yeah." Well, now you've confessed to working for Tesco's, and if you've got money in your pocket, that security guard can grab you and apply whatever punishment would go along with that. Because you confessed. Doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, it's right or wrong, you confessed. Okay? That works in this system as well. So, if you identify, okay, this is another legal fiction word, a legalese word, identify, you might think it means recognise. No, it means to make the same as, yeah? Which is make the same as one of these. So if you identify as a fictional entity, you create something called joinder. Yeah, you've joined yourself to this fictional entity. And now government can do whatever they like with you. Right? So the government assumes that you are an employee or citizen of the government. Okay? So is there any evidence that you are a government employee? Do you think there's evidence of that? That you personally are a government employee? I think there is. This is proof, that to the government at least, that you are one of their citizens or persons or employees. But person is the straw man here in this case. A person is not what you think it is. You are not a person. You have a person. A A person is a corporation, a dead entity. Corporation, the dead speaks. Yeah? So this is evidence that you are something called a person. So this birth certificate, right? Well, it's made up with this thing called a first name and a surname. Do you have a first name and a surname? Yeah. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have a first. No, you have a given name. You have a given name, a name given to you by your parents, and a family name. The government creates something called a first name in all capital letters and a surname in all capital letters, and jams them both together. Because how many times in your life has somebody come up to you and said, to me, say, "Hello, David Murphy. How are you, David Murphy?" No, they don't. They just say your given name or maybe even a nickname. But they never ever jam the two names together. Okay? The government did that. They created this thing called a person with your name in all capitals, as a first name and a surname. So on the birth certificate, it actually says, "Warning, this certificate is not evidence of the identity of the person presenting it." It's not there for your identity. Yeah? It's also, somewhere on it has the words Crown copyright, which means that name isn't yours. It belongs to the Crown. Yeah? And every time you use it, you're breaking the law. Okay? So where did this come about? This came about during the Great Fire of London. Okay? While the Great Fire of London was raging and the Black Death was going around, okay, lots of people were dying left, right, centre. But while the fire was burning, Parliament sat. And Parliament enacted a piece of legislation in French, so the English wouldn't know what was in it, called the Tacit Acquiescence of 1666. 1666. Yeah, so the Tacit Acquiescence, 1666, what it did was, it declared that everyone was dead, because they didn't know who was dead or who was alive. They said, everyone is dead. So because everyone's dead, we, the government, are going to administer everybody's share of the country. So imagine, this country's natural wealth is in the trillions, okay? Now divide however many trillions that is by 67 million, and that's how much your share of the country's worth. Still some figure in the billions, okay? That's why essentially everything in this country is prepaid for you, because you own a share of the country, okay? But the government, because of this act, has become the shareholder, your shareholder, okay? Now in this act, they actually declared that, or gave a provision, that if you present yourself to the government before the age of 7, you can claim your share of the country back. But they didn't tell anybody that they could do that. And there's nothing in the Act that tells you how to do it. And because it's in French, nobody knew that was even a thing. Right? So, till this day, nobody knows how to do it. Okay? So, before the age of 8, a boy has a title. Anybody know what that title is? Master. So what do you think a master is?
Master of his estate.
Master of his... Yes, so a master cannot be imprisoned. A master can't be fined. And the master can't be accosted in any way, just like a 7-year-old boy. Yeah? But if you don't present yourself, and present yourself as being alive, then you get another title after the age of 8. What's that? Mister. So what do you think that means? No, you missed it. That's a good one. No, it actually means, if you look it up, it actually means somebody who's engaged in mystery. M-I-S-T-E-R-Y. So you look up mystery in a legal dictionary, it means a trade or business. So in other words, a corporation. Okay, so the word Mr. means corporation. Women aren't really highly regarded in this system. So what's your first title? Miss. What do you think that means? Never hit the target. No, it means miss out, ignore, no status whatsoever. Yeah. But that changes when you get married. So what title do you take on then? What do you think that means? Well, let's see. If I spelled it, M-R''S. Misters, belonging to the mister, belonging to the trade or business. When you get married, it's a corporate merger between you, your partner, and the state. And the state have an interest in the products of that corporate merger, i.e. children. Okay? So this is how they trick us all the time with words, with word magic, and I'll get into that in a second. But it's all about consent and agreements, yeah? And they trick us all the time to get our consent, okay? So I want you to look at this image. Now, I made this image myself, so I know what's right, but these two circles are different. So I want you to tell me which is the biggest one, the red or the blue?
The red one.
Red. So hands up. Who said? I'm going to find out who's right brain and who's left brain now. So hands up. Who says the red one is the biggest one? Okay. Okay. What about who says the blue is the bigger one? So a few more say blue. Okay, there's a lot of people who didn't put their hand up, really. Sorry, they're the same. Who says they're the same? Just give me someone. Okay, what? You say they're the same? Well, I'm telling you, I made this picture, right? So they are different. So which one's the biggest one?
Which one is the what?
Which one's the biggest one? No, I'm telling you, I made this myself, yeah? I did this myself, so which one's the biggest one?
They're both the same.
Sorry?
They're both the same.
Well, I'm telling you, right? I know the answer here because I made this, yeah? So, which one's the biggest one?
Red.
Red.
I can't see the difference.
Right, well, the point is they are the same. But what I did for most of you there was word magic, yeah? I said these circles are different. Well, they are. One's red, one's blue. And then I said, which one's the biggest one? I didn't lie to you. Yeah, I just used word magic. And there were some that I said, those of you who said that it was the same, I did use more word magic, and I didn't quite get you, but I got some of you. Even though you saw that they were the same, I got you to change your mind, change your reality. And the thing is, sometimes when I do this, even when I say they're the same, there's some people go, I still think the red one's bigger. Yeah? Because that's how powerful this word magic is. Yeah? It is so powerful that a very clever hypnotist can hypnotize you, or hypnotize some people, and make them believe an onion is an apple. And for them, it is their reality. You can't tell them. They're biting into that onion. You can't tell them that's an onion. They're going to say, oh, you're stupid, this is an apple. Right? That's how powerful it is. Okay? And we have the biggest hypnotist in the world in our front rooms. Right? There was a reason why they gave us all these TVs. I don't know if you remember, some of you remember, that when TVs first came out, they were fabulously expensive. But then the government made sure that everyone could rent one for £1 a week, yeah, from Rediffusion or DER or something. There's a lot of people who are too young to remember that, but the point is, the government made sure that everybody had a TV. Yeah? They didn't do that for our benefit. None of it's for our benefit. It means they can program us en masse. Okay? Give us a false reality, just like this guy. Yeah? That's what it's there for. So here's the crux of the legal system. It comes down to the language of the legal system. It's called legalese. Yeah? It's a foreign language. Even though it looks like English and sounds like English, right? It's a completely foreign language because all the words have been redefined to mean something else. Okay? So, the word register, okay, we all think we might know what that means. It means like to record. No, when you register something, you hand over title ownership of whatever you're registering with whoever you're registering with. So when you register your car, right, you're handing over ownership of that car to the DVLA. And you become the registered keeper. Keeper, not owner. Okay? The DVLA owns the car. When you register your child, you become the pair that rents them. Okay? So literally, this is another, what they call prima facie piece of evidence that the government owns that child, because you've handed over ownership to the government. I've already mentioned what person means, it's corporation. The word identify, I've mentioned that as well, to make the same as. The word notice. So you might get in the post like, notice of intended prosecution. Anybody got one of those? Yeah. Come on, own up, yes you have. I know. So you might get a notice of intended prosecution. So why don't they just say prosecution? Why are they giving you notice of intended prosecution?
Well, because they want to get the joined up.
Well, the word notice means offer. It's an offer of a prosecution. Do you want to be prosecuted? Yeah? And if you don't, if you miss the window for you to object, then they take that as you saying yes. Right? So the word summons, well, it kind of gives you the impression that you're forced to appear somewhere. You're obliged to appear somewhere. The word summons means invitation. You're being invited to appear at a private corporation's place of business for one of their summary judgment services. That's what it is. The word must also gives you the impression that there's an obligation on you. The word must is synonymous with the word may. So when it says you must do something, well, you may do something. It's very tricky. The word understand you already know. To stand under, to consent to. The next one includes. That's a very tricky one, okay? When you look in a legal dictionary, in Black's Law Dictionary, you won't find the regular sort of term and definition. All you'll find under includes is a bit of Latin. Inclusio unium est exclusio ulterius. Oh, I did that really smoothly, didn't I? Sounds like, yeah. I know that. But what that means is the inclusion of one is the exclusion of others. So, let's imagine you get a diktat from the government that says everyone must pay £5,000, including homeless people. Well, in your mind you think, well, everyone's got to pay this, including those homeless people who think they're exempt. No, it means only homeless people have to pay it. The inclusion of one is the exclusion of others. Yeah? Very tricky, because it sets up a different idea in your mind. That's what it's meant to do. The word requirement, yeah, it means request. So if it's a legal requirement, it's a legal request. And a request is something you can politely decline. The word apply means to beg. So when you make submit an application for registration, well, the word submit means to bend to somebody else's will. Right? So you're bending to somebody else's will and begging them to take your stuff. That's what it is. So here's a couple more legalese words that, they're kind of prescient right now. The word mandate. So I'm going to read this. A mandate is a written command given by a principal to an agent, specifically a commission or contract by which one person, the mandator, requests someone, the mandatory, to perform some service gratuitously, for free, voluntarily. The commission becoming effective when the mandatory agrees. So something that's mandatory is voluntary. And it becomes mandatory as soon as you agree to it. That's what the word means legally. The word compulsory, well, the first word, mandated, so that means that this applies, mandated by legal process or by statute. What's the power of a statute? Gets the force of law by your consent. So both of these mean voluntary. It's all word magic, because a lot of people are going to hear the words mandatory and compulsory and think, I've got to do it. It goes back to, there's a bit of psychology. If you go to a shop and try and return some clothing and you don't have the receipt, a bod on the desk is going to go, sorry, you can't do that. 9 out of 10 people are going to turn around and go, okay, I'll go home. But there's going to be one person who'll stand there and say, get the manager out here. Manager comes out and says, you know what, I'm going to do it for you just this once. The point is, he has to do it. It's the law. He has to let you return the clothes without the receipt. But it makes good business sense for him to put an authority figure on the desk to lie to people, because 9 out of 10 people are just going to accept the lie without question. Okay? So when people hear these words, 9 out of 10 people are going to accept it without question. Okay? The government says I have to, so I have to. Right? So all psychology. And you're going to find that this world is awash in this legalese type language. Listen to the media, you're going to hear this word magic, magic speaky stuff, yeah? Legalese language.
How do they get away with it?
Well, because they get away with it. Just think about it. When they said, oh, so-and-so died with COVID, instead of COVID. Most people heard of COVID, but not, they died with COVID. Yeah? That's that same language that we're talking about. The language that creates a false impression in one's mind. Okay? So yes, look out for it. You're going to hear it everywhere. So we're going to have a quick look at contracts. These are important because what you'll find is you end up embroiled in contracts without knowing it. Right? The contracts are everywhere, and most of the time they're hidden ones, and you just end up with one without even thinking about it. So there are 4 elements to a contract, okay? And all of these elements must be in place, otherwise the contract is null and void, okay? And you're going to find that every single one of the contracts you find yourself in, they're all null and void, right? So I also remember these 4 items by the acronym PHLEM. So makes it easy for me. So first one, full disclosure. The terms and conditions of that contract must be fully disclosed and included within the body of the contract. So the contract you sign, it's got to have all the terms and conditions on it. Well, one of the contracts, we'll get into it in a little while, the driving license is a contract, okay? But it doesn't give you full disclosure, because the terms and conditions of that driving license are in the Road Traffic Act, not on the document that you sign. Okay, so it fails on that one. Next one is lawful terms and conditions. The terms and conditions must be lawful. Any element of fraud in a contract makes it null and void. Okay, so the terms and conditions essentially are you giving up a natural inalienable right for a measly benefit privilege. That's not lawful. Okay, equal consideration. That means both sides have to put up something of equal value in a contract. Okay? Once again, you giving up an expansive right for a restrictive privilege, that's not equal. Okay? Last one is manifestation of intent. Your signature is manifestation of intent. It's saying, I'm signing this because this is my intention. Okay? Now, on a contract, there has to be 2 signatures for both parties. Right? Again, most of the contracts you find yourself in will only have your signature on. Okay? As I said, every contract has to have all of these in place, otherwise it's unenforceable. So, the 4 ways you can agree to a contract. The most notable one is a written contract. And as I said, most of these contracts are hidden ones that you don't know you're entering into. And I gave you the example of a driving license because most people think the driving license is a certificate of competency, where the grumpy guy with a clipboard bashing your dashboard, right, is saying, well, I've just watched this guy and he's a good driver, so I'm going to say he's passed. But that driving instructor does not sign your driving license, does he? No, he doesn't. Who signs it?
You do.
You do. So it's not a certificate of competency, it's a contract. It's a contract waiving your natural right to travel any way you see fit for the benefit privilege of being something called a driver. Okay? And all the rules and regulations and taxes and fees that goes along with it. Right? So, as I said, your signature is powerful. Your signature is very powerful. And we give that signature away, at a drop of a hat. Imagine, you go to a bank, right? You can go to that bank and walk away with £100,000. What do they take from you? Your signature. It's that powerful. I've got a lot to get through, so I don't think I can answer questions until...
Do you actually know people that have handed back their licences and been able to travel back and forth without actually having a driving licence on it?
Yeah, there's a whole class of people who don't have a driving licence and don't get hassled. They call them travellers. That's true. Yeah. Your signature is very powerful and it's of unlimited value. So be careful. If somebody's asking you to sign something, be wary. Because again, your signature is worth a lot. Okay? And you don't know what you're giving away when you sign something. So always read and dissect the contract before signing it. Okay? Now, when I came back to this country in 2010, I had to open a bank account. So the bank said to me, here's an application form, just sign this. Oh, thank you. Oh, it's kind of you. He said, just sign here and we'll open the account for you. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take this home. I'm going to read through it, I'm going to come back in the morning. So I took it home, read through it, and I found a couple of charges I didn't like. So I crossed them out, and I put my initials after them, okay? Did that twice. If I'd been a bit more savvy, I could have written in what I wanted in that contract, and then put my initials. So then I signed it, I folded it back up, and I went back into the bank the next morning. And just as they expected me to sign it without reading it, they accepted it without reading it. So a few months later, my bank balance dipped below zero for a microsecond, and they went, £30 charge. I said, I'm not paying it. Oh, you have to. Oh, no, I don't. It's not in our contract. Oh, yes, it is. Go and check. A couple of weeks later, I got a letter saying, we're going to remove that charge. Because you have power in a contract. You have just as much power in a contract as the other party. Okay? They haven't taught us this at school, that you have power in contracts. Okay? You can do exactly the same thing. What's supposed to happen is that I cross those things out, they read through it and go, oh, he doesn't like the £30 charge. What about £15? Yeah, it'd be better if it was 10. Okay, done. And then we've agreed, now we sign, now it's a contract. Yeah? But obviously it doesn't go that way. And these days they're trying to put everything online, so your only option is tick a box and press OK. Yeah? Because they're trying to remove that power from you. Okay? There's also something called the Four Corners Rule. Anybody heard of the Four Corners Rule? Wow, well, the Four Corners Rule... Sorry? Right. Yeah, don't give it away. Back. I just want to know if you knew it. Okay, so the Four Corners Rule is, again, very sneaky. Anything that appears in a box on that document is not part of the document. You can ignore it. Literally. So if it's in a box, or sometimes they just put the corners, I don't know if you've seen that, just put the corners, yeah? If it's in four corners, it's not part of the document. You can ignore it. and read the document without it. And you can bet that whatever's in that box is going to colour what's in the rest of the document in your mind. Okay? It's very tricky. Again, it's all about deception. But once you sign a document, right, once you sign the contract, now it becomes law. It's you agreed to something, and now it comes to do all you say you'll do. Right? So, protecting your signature, as I said, your signature is very valuable. So if you're being forced to sign something, so let's say you're on the side of the road and the police have stopped you, and for some reason they're saying, well, you've got to sign this, otherwise we're going to arrest you, or we're going to keep you here, or whatever, yeah? And you're forced to sign something, well, write the words under duress as part of your signature, yeah? Sometimes they might say, oh, that's not your signature. Well, how do you know? Yeah? The words under duress means that you're being forced to sign, which means that signature is null and void. So it's as though you've not signed it. Okay? You can't be held against you in a court of law or anywhere because you were forced to sign. Okay? As a kind of rule, if you're signing any document, you might want to put the words without prejudice as part of your signature. Without prejudice basically means, and I'll read this out, I reserve my right not to be compelled to perform under any contract or commercial agreement that I did not enter knowingly, voluntarily and intentionally, and I do not accept the liability of the compelled benefit of any contract or commercial agreement not revealed to myself, which are my rights pursuant to common law. So basically you're saying, if there's any bullshit attached to this, I'm not being held to it, essentially. So you're reserving your common law rights, and you can do that just by writing without prejudice on it. Okay? So the second way to agree is a verbal contract. Okay? And the way that most people enter into a verbal contract is by answering questions. Okay? So when I said to David, would you like me to punch you in the face?
Yes, please.
Right, so now we have a verbal contract, which means we've made this contract, and after we leave here, I can still punch him in the face because he's already agreed.
Without prejudice.
Without prejudice, he said. So with him answering yes to that question, we've now got a verbal contract between us. And now I can do whatever I like within the terms of that contract. Do you understand? Yeah, that if you say yes to that to a policeman, well, now you've got a verbal contract, and now you've consented to things. So the way to get around that is to answer questions with questions. Yeah, it's a very sneaky trick, really, because when they ask you a question, if you ask one back, now you've batted the ball back into their court. Yes, exactly. This is why they do it, yeah? They don't get pinned down with anything because they're always asking you the question back. So that, it the buck doesn't stop with them, yeah? It's a very difficult game to play, yeah? But if you get it right, it's really very powerful, yeah? But you can be caught out. You can be easily caught out. And it's no accident they're playing that on a tennis court, because that's the game. Return the ball. Yeah? If you make a statement, you fumbled the ball. Yeah, you lose a point. Okay? So very powerful, but again, it's a tricky skill to master. When I gave this talk, I gave a version of this talk to homeschoolers, 9 to 14-year-olds. And after we finished that lesson, they were all out in the garden going, am I obliged to do that? Yes, you are. They're playing questions. So it was really great to see. So they picked it up straight away. So the third way to agree is consent implied by your actions. Okay, so answering a stranger's questions is giving them authority to ask you or demand answers from you and expect you'll answer them. Okay, so it's like a stranger coming up to you and saying, what are your bank details? So what would you say? You'd say, who are you? Yeah, I thought you said something rude.
I did.
So yeah, a stranger asking you questions and you answering them is literally giving your authority away to that stranger. Right? If a policeman says, go and stand over there, and you just march over there, well now you've given that policeman authority over you to demand or command you to do things and expect you're going to follow his commands. As soon as you follow his commands, he's got authority over you. Yeah? Consent implied by your actions. So, or one way to get around that is, am I obliged to stand over there, officer? Now the ball's in his court. Okay? Another way is that an order or is that a request? Well, if it's a request, then, you can politely decline the request. But if it's an order, well, orders are chargeable. Okay? So what happens if you go into McDonald's and you order a cheeseburger? What comes next? You pay. Who sets the price? McDonald's does. So if somebody orders you to do something, right, charge them. You don't work for free, do you? Well, no, if somebody orders you to do something, right, you can charge them and you set the price. So, like if you go to McDonald's and you say, I'd like a cheeseburger, please. Oh, cheeseburger's 25 quid. You still want a cheeseburger? Now it's down to you. Do you want that cheeseburger? It's going to cost you 25 quid. The choice is yours. So, there's a video on my channel where I get stopped by the police. And the policeman wants me to get out of the car. So I said to him, well, I'm happy to get out of the car, officer, but I don't work for free. If you want me to get out of the car, it's going to cost you £20,000. Do you still want me to get out of the car? He said, yes. I said, hold on a sec. And I wrote out an invoice. And he signed it on camera. So now, right, and then I got out of the car. But now, I didn't do this, and maybe we'll get into it why a little later. But now I could go to court and go, 1 million people have watched me, because 1 million people have watched this video by now. 1 million people have watched me make this man an offer. He accepted the offer. I performed. He hasn't paid. Open and shut case. It's not a leg to stand on. I didn't do that. Because the other thing I was going to do was I was going to get what's known as a commercial lien on Hampshire Police, which meant that I could, when I get it matured, I could go to Hampshire and get goods to the value of. And I set my lien at £50,000. But I didn't do it. But if I was going to do that, what I was going to do was go to Hampshire and start clamping police cars. And I had a friend with a removals company. He was going to go and collect those clamped cars and line them up outside my house so I can, on my YouTube video, go. But, if I did that and took the coppers of court, I would have every single policeman in the country after me. So there were other things I needed to do, so I let it go. But anyway, the point is that, as I said, you can charge. If somebody's ordering you to do something, you can charge them and you can set the price for it. Yeah. So even if you write your documents to whoever, make sure you add a fee schedule for your time, your effort, and your expenses, or anything you can think of. Inconvenience fee, anything you think of. But your time is valuable, and anyone expecting you to service an order for free, well, that's blackmail, that's fraud, that's business malpractice. Okay. I think that's it. So there's something called, still on the topic of consent implied by your actions. There's a type of contract called an adhesion contract. Now you might be familiar with it when you go and park your car in a car park. Okay? Somewhere in that car park, it says, notice, by parking in this car park, you agree to the following fees. And then they lay out their fee schedule. Okay? And that contract is deemed to be activated as soon as you park your car in that car park. So consent implied by your actions. Okay? Well, the way you can get out of that is you put your own notice on your car. Okay? And this is a notice that's in my car right now. Okay? It says, and I'll summarise. It says this is to anyone who's a DVLA, police, or parking attendants, whatever. That's what it's aimed at. It says you agree to pay £250 for each notice that is attached or issued to this car. You agree to pay £125 for each image or photograph that you take of this car. You agree, if you clamp this car, you agree to pay £500 per hour or portion of thereof until the clamp is removed. If you move, relocate or tow this car, you thereby agree to pay £750 per hour. Okay? So you're using the power they're using against you, you're using against them. Sorry? Oh yes, yes. I had this in my car for a good couple of years. One time I parked. Me and my friends went to a party. I parked in the street, and we didn't know it was residents only. Came out in the morning, tickets on all the cars except mine. And there was one time that they did actually put a parking ticket on my car, and it was for 50 quid. So I wrote back to them and said, thank you for your parking charge. Your parking attendant would have noticed that I had a notice on my window. My charges for your notice are £250. Send me the £250 and I'll send you your £50 back. I never heard from them again. Yeah. So yes, I didn't bring my car today, but I would have said it was outside. It's in my window at the moment, and yeah, people have noticed it as well. People notice it and come up and say, "Oh, I've just noticed your window. It's brilliant," you know. But it worked, yeah. So hopefully, if I put out the slides for this, you'll be able to get it.
Yes.
No, I didn't. You don't have to deregister your car to do that. What you're doing there is playing them at their own game. Yeah. The power they have to make an adhesion contract is the same power you have to make an adhesion contract. Yeah? Plus these companies, they're all businesses. They're all businesses doing business with you, so you can do business with them. You've got exactly the same power as they have, so use it. Yeah? So the fourth way to agree, okay, is called Tacit Acquiescence. That means agreement by your silence. You have the right to remain silent, okay? But if somebody makes you an offer and you remain silent, then that offer is deemed to be accepted, okay? He who is silent consents. That's the maxim in law. So you'll find that judges use this trick all the time, okay? When you go to court and the judge makes a pronouncement like, "I'm going to fine you £500." Right? He will pause, and he will try and cover up that pause by shuffling paper or looking around for somebody in the court or something. But he's giving you a pause, and in that pause, you're supposed to object. And if you don't object in that narrow window he gives you, well, then you've accepted that pronouncement. Your silence means consent. Now, there was a woman who went to court, and that happened to her. The judge said, "Well, I'm going to fine you £500." And immediately she said, "I'm not going to pay that. I'm not going to do it." And the judge leaned forward and said, "Well, what about £250? Because it's an offer, okay? And she didn't accept it. Governments use that as well. Use this trick as well. So when they made like mask, when they said the mask mandate on public transport, they always said, or what they always say. Okay, from the 25th of March, there's going to be a mask mandate. They don't say, "Oh, right, from today, there's masks, you've got to wear masks." No, they always put it in the future. And that time is your moment to object. And if you don't object, righto, you want the mask mandates then? And they bring it in. Okay? But they always give you that time to object. And if you remain silent, then it's deemed that you've accepted it. Okay? They also used to do it with council tax. Every year, around about March, they'd put like a double-page spread in the local paper. This is what we're going to do with your council tax. It's an offer. Do you want to pay council tax so we can do this with it? And if nobody objects, then okay, righty-ho. You're going to get council tax. So yeah, they're the 4 ways you can agree to contracts. As I said, contracts are everywhere, and half the time you don't know you're getting into them. Right, so what time is that? Ooh, I've got to hurry up. Okay, so I'm going to whiz through this one. Driving and travelling, okay? As I said, I've said this before actually, that the driving licence contract, and we waive our right to travel for the benefit privilege of being a driver. So the driving licence fails on all 4 elements of a contract. So a driving licence isn't enforceable. And one of the things you do in common law is you dissect the English grammar, because we've never been taught grammar properly. Okay? So the Road Traffic Act defines a motor vehicle as a mechanically propelled vehicle, right, adapted or intended for use on the road. What it is, it uses, well, first of all, a motor vehicle and a vehicle are 2 different things. Because in the definition motor vehicle, it says vehicle. So they're 2 different things. But this definition uses the indefinite article a, meaning that a motor vehicle is only one type of mechanically propelled vehicle. I hope you're following me with this. Yeah? So let's define an apple as a round red fruit. So are these apples? No, they're not. It means an apple is just one type of round red fruit. Yeah? So, not all of these mechanically propelled vehicles are motor vehicles. So let's see, what is a motor vehicle? So this is the legal definition of a motor vehicle. And this is how you've got to use Black's Law Dictionary, and this is how tricky they make it. Okay, so again, it's defined, a motor vehicle is defined as a mechanically propelled vehicle adapted or intended for use on the road. Well, what's a vehicle? Includes every description of carriage or other artificial contrivance used or capable of being used as a means of transportation on land. Well, what's a carriage? Carriage, a vehicle used for transportation of persons, either for pleasure or business. Transportation, what's that? The removal of goods or persons from one place to another by a carrier. What's the carrier? Carrier, one who undertakes to transport persons or property from place to place by means of conveyance and with or without compensation. It's starting to sound a bit commercial, isn't it? Yeah. So what's an undertaking? A promise, an engagement or stipulation, each of the promises made by parties to a contract. So, what's a motor vehicle? It's every description of a mechanically propelled artificial contrivance adapted or intended for use on the road, used or capable of being used as a means of removing goods or persons from one place to another by one who has promised, contracted, or been engaged to transport persons or property from place to place with or without compensation. So that means a taxi driver is a driver. A bus driver is a driver. Yeah? So, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, a bus is a motor vehicle because it fits that definition. A taxi is a vehicle because it fits that definition. Yeah? Your car, when you get in it to go to Tesco's, does it fit that definition? No, it doesn't. Your car is not a motor vehicle. Okay? Just like a butter knife is not a deadly weapon. Okay? It's a butter knife. But if I were to grab that butter knife and stab somebody in the eye with it, now it's a deadly weapon. It's how it's being used that defines what it is. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. So, what's a driver? Okay? One who's employed to conduct or operate a carriage. Okay. Conductor, a lessee or person who hires the services of another, a hirer, a person hired to make specific work. What's a conductor? A person who engages to perform a piece of work for another at a stated price. Operative, a workman, a labouring man. So to drive means to commercially operate a vehicle used for transporting passengers or property for hire. So again, a taxi driver is a driver, a bus driver is a driver, a coach driver is a driver, a lorry driver is a driver. But are you a driver? No, you're not. And this is how they trick us. We all use the word, we're driving down the shops. Right? We're not. We're just travelling. Literally travelling. Now, as soon as you admit to being a driver, now you become one of these straw men, one of these legal fictions. Okay? So, you can't read this, but this is a Freedom of Information request that went out to the DVLA, and it says, and I know you can't read it here, but it says, I acknowledge that the common law right to travel still exists. Full stop. Okay? The rest of this is bullshit word magic to make you believe that you still need tax, MOT, insurance and all that. You know, it talks about vehicles and drivers. And we're not talking about drivers, we're talking the right to travel. Okay? But they'll always use this word magic to try and steer you back to their way of thinking. And as I said, there are a group of people who already know all this, and they don't buy into all this bullshit. And it's travellers. They don't have tax, MOT and insurance or driving licences, but the police don't touch them because they know they're travelling. We don't. So just a final thing on this topic. This is, again, a letter that was sent to an MP, and it says, thank you for contacting me about driving licences. There is no legal requirement for a driving licence in the United Kingdom. Right there, from the horse's mouth.